Rest assured, your Hummer won't blend in. You won't go unnoticed. A Hummer doesn't look like people expect a vehicle to look, and they haven't seen a lot of them. And with the relative handful of civilian Hummers that will be produced this year, they won't.
Americans like big cars. They've always liked big cars. It's kind of our thing. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that for a brief moment in the 2000s, the Hummer, that oversized, ridiculous-looking, tank-like vehicle that was literally created exclusively for the military, would become the it car to have by those who were cool or wanted to be perceived as cool. For most of the first decade of the 21st century, owning a Hummer was the ultimate symbol of status. In fact, the 2000s were literally littered with celebs who owned or drove Hummers, not limited to the likes of Britney Spears, Mike Tyson, Bon Jovi guitarist Richie Sambora, Dennis Rodman, Roseanne Barr, Wyclef Jean, Adrian Brody, Coolio, Rolling Stone guitarist Ronnie Wood, cable mogul Ted Turner, Queen Latifah, tennis great Andre Agassi, TV talk show host Montel Williams, NBA star Karl Malone, and of course, Paris Hilton. Despite the staggering sticker price, some Hummers could cost up to $100,000, and the awful gas mileage, 10 miles per gallon. 10! It seemed for a time that you couldn't drive the streets without spotting a Hummer, which is the ultimate in irony since the car was never designed for streets in the first place. In fact, the Hummer craze was so insane and ridiculous that it could basically be summed up in 3 words: Hummer, stretch, limo. Hummers were seemingly everywhere in the early 2000s, with GM selling 30,000 Hummers in 2004 alone. But in 2010, all manufacturing and sales came to a halt. So what happened to the Hummer? More importantly, why was a car that everyone knew cost too much, had crappy gas mileage, was bad for the environment, wasn't even meant to be a vehicle for the general public, so popular and so desired? Why the hell did we love Hummers so much? Let's find out. The only reason Hummers exist is because the US military decided one day in the 1980s that they needed an upgrade. For decades, the armed services used the Jeep as its go-to vehicle, implementing them from World War I all the way through the Vietnam War. But around the 80s, the military started looking for something a little more heavy-duty. See, the Jeep didn't have a lot of power, it also couldn't carry a lot of people, it also had no armor. So the Pentagon gave the company AM General a $1 billion contract to develop a fleet of high-mobility, multi-purpose wheeled vehicles. Eventually called Humvees, the bulky vehicles were designed to transport troops and cargo. And that really should be the end of our story right there. Seriously, that literally should be the brief, simple history of the Humvee. But one person changed all that. That one person? Arnold Schwarzenegger. That is not an exaggeration. Arnold Schwarzenegger is pretty much the reason why Hummers became so popular with anyone not in the military. While filming his movie Kindergarten Cop in Oregon, Schwarzenegger saw Humvees rolling by and immediately wanted one. In a 1991 Rolling Stone interview, Schwarzenegger said they reminded him of his younger days when he drove tanks while serving in the Austrian army. So he contacted AM General to try to get his hands on one. When he was turned down, the star pushed for a civilian version, now named the Hummer, to be made, and AM General listened. And that's how Arnold became the first civilian to own a specially made Humvee. AM General even stenciled Terminator on his model. He just went ape for that machine, said his agent Lou Pitts, as quoted in the unauthorized biography Fantastic: The Life of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, it was big, it was unique, it was something that was larger than him. In 1999, General Motors bought the rights to market and sell Hummers from AM General. Thanks to the booming economy and low gas prices, Hummer sales took off, especially in Hollywood. From 1999 to 2000 alone, Hummers were featured in 32 different movies. While the first Hummer model was basically a carbon copy of its bulky military predecessor, the second model featured a slightly sleeker design and cost about $50,000. Named the H2, it quickly became Hummer's top-selling model. That was followed by the H3, which was further scaled down in size and priced to appeal to more consumers. Hummer's overall sales peaked in 2006 with a little over 70,000 units sold. For an offbeat, non-traditional vehicle like that, those numbers are actually kind of incredible. Even more incredible is the fact that people love the Hummer despite the fact that it may have been the most impractical and uncomfortable car ever created for consumer consumption. This thing was just not meant for public roads. A regular-sized car weighs about 2,871 pounds. A Hummer could weigh anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 pounds. It was an absolute unit. It was so heavy that owning one meant you could claim farm equipment tax credit with the IRS. It also had numerous quirks: an absence of airbags, a dinky steering wheel that almost looked and felt like you were playing an arcade game, a very uncomfortable ride, even unnecessary hooks on the Hummer's hood that allowed it to be dropped from the sky by a helicopter. And the big selling point of the Hummer, its unparalleled abilities in off-roading, meant absolutely nothing because most people didn't use it for off-roading in the first place. But none of that mattered to the fans of the Hummer. They loved it from the moment they set eyes on it. And the reason wasn't just because their favorite celebs were driving them. No, the obsession for the Hummer went much deeper than that. It was all about ego. The Hummer embodied America's supersized lifestyle and the people who aspired to it. The car was seen as tough, capable, and larger than life, and those qualities spoke to the egos of many. And once GM took over the Hummer line, it became really easy for them to market it. All they had to do was market it towards guys insecure about their masculinity. In the wake of metrosexuality's rise in the late 90s, men grasped for ways to prove their devotion to traditional masculinity. In 2006, Hummer ran an advertisement that focused on a man buying tofu and vegetables at the grocery store. He notices that a man behind him is buying massive piles of meats, sees a Hummer ad on the back cover of a magazine next to the cash register, and races to a Hummer dealership after completing his purchase. "Restore the balance" was the ad's tagline. That's just a big old yikes. In her essay, The Might of the Metrosexual, Margaret Irvin states, quote, "The advent of the metrosexual heralds a very real change in the social construction of masculinity. Hummers are applauded as expressive of the true needs and desires that stand at the core of what it means to be a real man. In fact, the vehicle's link to traditional masculinity had been its main strength, as no one was driving a Hummer for its practicality and common sense. What mattered was that the Hummer was macho, albeit uselessly macho." And what about the fact that Hummers were absolutely awful for the environment? Well, no one really cared. A study published in 2010 that examined the Hummer by interviewing its owners reported, quote, "Being accused of harming the environment made them laugh, as they thought the Prius driver does not understand the science rather than reconsider their consumption choice." Fans and owners of the vehicle ultimately found the masculine image that the Hummer evoked too alluring to prioritize its negative environmental impact. Ironically, while one war helped make Hummers popular, it was another war that would bring it down. The war in Iraq shot up gas prices astronomically, which made owning a Hummer seem even more impractical. When the stock market crashed in 2008, the majority of people were suddenly worried about money. The Hummer was among the many victims, and GM filed for bankruptcy in 2009. A car that was once seen as aspirational had now become a symbol of wasteful consumption. The last Hummer H3 was produced in May 2010 before the brand was shut down for more than a decade, as now the Hummer was seen as a relic and the butt of endless jokes. America's obsession with cars will never end. Plain and simple, we are a car country. So while the Hummer may be a thing of the past, our need to pump up our egos based on the kind of car we own is still alive and well. Just take a look at our obsession with the Tesla, which again is more about branding and identity than about an economically sound automobile. It's the same type of mania, just in a different shape. And though the OG Hummer is dead and buried, the name and brand is not. In 2020, General Motors launched the electric version of the Hummer, GMC Hummer EV. It's definitely better for the environment, and it definitely still looks ridiculous when you see one on the open road.